Alright, let's continue with Eloquent JavaScript, and today we are looking at chapter 10, modules. Here is the table of content. So today we are going to learn what a module is, and then what is a package, and also NPM, which stands for Node.js Package Manager. And we will take a look at some code about the implementation of modules. And finally, we are going to look at some tools and tips for creating modules. All right, let's begin. So for module, you need to understand two things. One is the interface, and then the dependencies. So let's take a look at this image. It's a Lego blocks, right? And a module is like a Lego block. It's a bunch of code you use to achieve a certain purpose. So that means you group some codes, some functions together to do something, maybe one thing usually. And then in this block of code, you would have something we call interface, which is how you interact with other modules or other code. It's like the connection between your code and other code. So in the Lego example, it's the stud on top of a Lego, because that's how you connect. That's where you connect other blocks, right? And then we have dependencies. That means in your code, you might use some functions that are not written by yourself. For example, you might use like a function to generate some random number, and you didn't write that function, right? But you can use it to generate a random number, and that function would be your dependence. It's created by someone else and it's used in your code. Okay, that means your code, your module depends on that piece of code. So in this example, we have some Lego block that's created by some other people. For example, we have one made by Danny and the other one made by Jesse, right? And these are your dependencies for your module. Okay, let's take a look at a more complicated sample. So here we have two buildings made by Lego, right? And you probably didn't make those little Lego people, the characters, right? But you might have designed the window or the doors of the buildings. So the little characters are your dependencies, and the windows and the doors are your own code. And also you need to let others use your code. So we have some interface for you to connect with other modules. So in this case, we have some mechanism right on the side of the blue building. And then you can use that to connect with other buildings to create a bigger block. That is, so you pack all those things together and you create a package. So a package is made of multiple modules, and also those modules might share some dependencies. So you might have separate piece of information about the dependencies. So when you have a module, when you have all this done, you have a finished work, right? And you want to ship it out, and you create a package to combine all those things together. And In this example, we have a package of the Lego product, right? So that's a package. And next, so once you have the product ready, you need to be able to sell it, to put it onto the shelves. In the Lego case, we have a Lego store, and in JavaScript, we have npm. It's the Node.js package manager. Well, it's a place for programmers to share their codes in the format of a package. And of course, inside the package, you have one or multiple modules, right? And npm can also help you to, to manage your packages. That means you can delete, you can add, and you can make some change like updating your packages. And it can also help you to manage your dependencies. That's npm. So for now, you don't have to dig deeper into npm because as you carry on learning JavaScript, you will run into npm again and again, and you can run one function at a time. All right, let's recap what we have learned so far. So here is the relation of all the terms we have learned. So in the outer layer, we have npm, which is the place you put your codes, you share your codes, you share your packages. And then on npm, we have many different packages shared by different programmers. And inside the package, we might have one or multiple modules. In these modules, we can find interface, that is how you are going to interact with the module. And then we have some dependencies. That means we might use some other people's code in our module. All right, and let's take a look at some sample codes. And so for creating a module, we have different ways to do it. And in this chapter, some old ways are also presented. Let's just quickly go through them. For example, this is one of functions, using functions to create a module. As you can see, it's a simple function, right? And then it returns two more functions. And you can use these two functions to interact with the module. That means these two are the interface of the module, right? And let's take a look at how it is used. So we have weekday dot number, that is the second function. So Sunday is passed into this function, right? Let's take a look at the detail. So if it's a name for number, it would be used to find the index in the array of names, right? That means we would get 0 because Sunday is the first one in the array, right? And 0 would be returned to this part as the result of the function, and then it would be used as the parameter for the next function, which is .name, right? That means this part, so return the names of 0, right? The element with the index of 0, that would be function Sunday. So that's why we get Sunday as a result. So this is a basic function. So there are some limitations using functions to create a module. For example, you cannot manage your dependencies. As you can see in this simple function, we don't have any dependence. But if you want to add some dependence to your module, it's difficult to do it in a function. All right. The other one is using the function eval, that is short for evaluation. It means this function would execute your code. So in this example, the code is here. This is the code, and then it will be executed inside this function. And there are also some other limitation for this one, like it is executed in the current scope, and it might cause some confusion in terms of scopes. And anyway, you don't need to understand the detail of it. I think this is just for you to have a basic understanding of about the development of ways of creating a module. And this is obviously an old way, and it is not recommended nowadays. But the author of the book wants you to know how we get to where we are now. And let's take a look at the next one. It's using the function constructor. As you can see, the F is capitalized. It's a constructor, and it takes two parameters. The first one is the parameters for your new function. They are separated by comma, but for this one we have only one parameter. And then is the content of the function. It's the actual code of the function, right? So as you can see, it just returns n+1. So you got the result in this example. So you pass in 4, you get 5, right? So this is good enough for creating a module, as everything is wrapped into a function. But again, it's not the best way to do it. And the most popular way nowadays, it's still using CommonJS. It's like a module, a package to help you to manage your packages, to manage your modules. And the most important thing in this module in CommonJS is the require function. You can use it to import the other modules that you are going to use in your module, which means your dependencies. As you can see here, ordinal, the module ordinal is imported into our module, and it is used as ordinal, right, with this variable. And then in this function, this is the main body of our module, right? And we have one function only for this module, which is format date, and it is under exports, right? And then we can use exports outside of this. It can be used outside of the module. And here is the body of the function, and it's just taking in a date and then a format, and change the date according to the format. Let's take a look at how it is used. So as you can see in this one, it is also using CommonJS to import the module, which is our module. And then it's using the format date function from the module. The curly brackets is used to destructure the function from our module, right? And then a new day is passed in, and then here is the format. So we have the long day and then the ordinal day. That's why we get Friday the 13th. And that is CommonJS. CommonJS is pretty good and used by many programmers, but it has its own limitation, and I guess we don't have to know the detail of the limitation, but the foundation that is responsible for all the standards of JavaScript had introduced their own way of managing module, which is called the ES modules. It's very similar to CommonJS, but instead of require, it uses the keyword imports to import your dependencies. So as you can see here, it's very similar. You just import ordinal from ordinal, right? And then in the second part, we have some functions from the module we are importing. We just need some of the function, so we use this structure. And then this is how you export your function for importing. Okay, and next, usually we would have a default exported value. So in this one, the first line, we import ordinal from the module ordinal. So we didn't specify which function we are taking. That means we are getting the default exported value from this module, right? And next, we can also change the name while importing. So in this example, we import days. Days is from the day names module, and then we rename it as day names, and we can just use day names in our code. So this is the ES module, and ES module is becoming the new standard since it is created by the foundation of JavaScript, right? But there are so many modules that were written in CommonJS, so they kind of both exist together now. We are at a stage of transition. We are moving from CommonJS to ES module. And next, let's talk about some bundlers. Since when you are creating a package or a module, you might have multiple files. As your module gets bigger, you have more and more files, documents, and we would use a software called Bundler to help us to combine those documents together to make it easier to manage and also to decrease the file size so that it's easier and faster to be opened in a browser. And Webpack is the most popular bundler. Again, you don't need to know too much about Webpack at the moment, because as you continue learning JavaScript, you will definitely run into Webpack and you will learn more about it later. And another one that's getting more and more popular is Parcel. It's also alternative for Webpack, another bundler. And finally, next we have Minifier. As the name implies, it's going to help you to minify your document, your file. So as you can see on the left hand side, we have a normal CSS file. We would usually structure your code so that it is easy for human to read, right? But it's not necessary for computer. That's why we can minify it to be like the one on the right hand side. There is no space, no line, no blank lines. So it's difficult to read, but it's enough for computer, right? So, and the benefit is that the file size would be much smaller, as you can see in the image below. For jQuery, the normal one is is about 260 something KB, but after you minified it, it became 85 KB. So it's much smaller. Again, it's better for browser to load it from your server, right? All right, let's go through the process of the generation of a module. Usually, when a module is created, it would experience this process. So first, we might be using some new feature and functions from some newer version of JavaScript, which might not be supported by some most popular browsers in the market. So it's better to translate them into older version of JavaScript. So this is the first step. I believe it's usually done by a package called Babel, but you will learn about that later. And then next, we would like to translate ES module to CommonJS, because CommonJS is still the most popular module system, and it's used in many situations, so it might be preferable for your developing environment. So we have this part, and then it will be all your files would be bundled together and finally minified. So that is the common process of generating a module. And finally, let's look at some tips, some suggestions for creating a module. And first of all, your module should be simple and predictable, so people know what to expect from your module. For example, if you are working with JSON, it would be better to write your functions in line with some convention, like using names such as stringify or pass for your functions, so that people understand what they are dealing with and they can pick it up easily. And then next, use simple data structures. That means if you can achieve your purpose with an array, don't use graph. It's not necessary to make it more complicated. And finally, it would be better if your module focus on one purpose or one function. Okay, one module provides one function, and so that it's clear, it's simple, right? And that's all for module. And that's chapter 10 from Eloquent JavaScript. Thank you for watching.